Welcome to Mystery Disappearance. In the first episode, we talked a bit about 20-year-old Joshua Guimond, who disappeared in November 2002. If you haven't watched that video, I highly encourage you to do so, as we take a look at the timeline of Josh's last day and the days following his disappearance. Today we're going to go into the first theory of what happened to Josh. Let's go back to November 2002. Josh doesn't return to his dorm or on campus. Friends start to worry, parents are notified, they arrive, and a considerable search for Josh starts Monday morning, November 11th. While family, friends, and the Stearns County officers question around to retrace Josh's steps, it is evident that his last known location was at a card party at Mitten Court, a dorm house just outside of campus. Around midnight, Josh presumably walks towards his own dorm, which is about a 3 to 5 minute walk. There is a bridge separating the two dorms. Bloodhounds were used to track Josh's scent. They seemingly picked up his scent at Mitten Court, at Stump Lake, to Josh's dorm, and then to the Abbey. The scent seems to stop in the middle of the bridge. Now, I'm no expert on bloodhounds or anything, but I always thought bloodhounds were more useful in picking up someone's scent in an area or territory where they normally wouldn't be in. But Josh's scent was all over this campus, since he's been around for a couple of months into the semester. So, I don't know, Josh crossed that bridge to go to Mitten Court in the first place, so how does a bloodhound lose his scent in the middle of the bridge? I guess they're just that efficient. But Josh did cross that bridge less than an hour earlier, so if the bloodhounds can separate these scents, that's definitely impressive, but I don't know, I can't put 100% faith into the bloodhounds. But because one of the scents seemed to stop at the bridge, the first big theory is that Josh might have possibly fallen or jumped off the bridge into the water. Friends and acquaintances report that Josh had been drinking, but wasn't really impaired or wobbling drunk, so could Josh have accidentally fallen to the water? Now, this bridge isn't above a straight drop into the water. It seems to be built on some sort of mount or terrain. This bridge seems to have a 4-foot wall that you have to climb on, and even then it's not an immediate drop into the water. There's bushes and weeds. On the Simply Vanished podcast, attorney Josh Newville went to take a look with his friend Ted. And they said even if you jump from the wall, you would have to jump 10 feet to clear the brush and even fall into the water. It doesn't seem like a very high drop either. Furthermore, Josh and Tim stated that these waters are only a few feet deep. Josh was around 5'11" to 6 feet tall, so this water probably would not have even gone over his head. He could just stand up. Granted, it was a cold evening in Minnesota on November 9th, and Josh was supposedly only wearing a St. John University hoodie. So if he didn't drown, could he have died of hypothermia, whether he was in the waters or not? Again, I think this is unlikely. Even if it was a cold night and the waters were cold, it would probably take time for someone to succumb to the elements. It doesn't happen in minutes, except for extreme temperatures. Remember Titanic? Josh could have gotten out in a minute or two if he indeed was in the water for whatever reason. And he was very close to his dorm, maybe a couple of minutes walk away. So in the end, it is unlikely that Josh fell into the water. There was no incentive for him to climb that 4-foot wall. It doesn't seem like anybody could fall in the water because of clumsiness or being inebriated. Some people have theorized that maybe Josh wanted to commit suicide and purposely jump in the water. However, his friends and family have never noticed any change in Josh. No change in attitude, no change in behavior, no reason for him to be unhappy or to believe he would even entertain such an idea. By all accounts, Josh was always his same happy, jovial self, and by revisiting Josh's activities in his last day, it's just not consistent with a person being unhappy and thinking about suicide later in the day. Josh's family and friends swear up and down that Josh would never commit suicide, and I do believe they're right. There's just no evidence to support this fact. This bridge and this small arm of Stump Lake don't seem to be, for lack of a better term, a good suicide spot. Even when you look on Google Maps, these bodies of water seem fairly still. It's not like it's a flowing river where it could carry a body over to the larger part of the lake. Josh Newville and his friend Tim pretty much said as much on the Simply Vanished podcast. If Josh was in any of the surrounding lakes, his body would have certainly surfaced, or at the very least certain articles of clothing, like shoes or socks, come off in these scenarios. Although we never really know what goes on in a person's mind, but Josh's body was never found, so I don't think we're on the right track. There are other theories that suggest Josh might have disappeared, either willingly or forcefully, but we will discuss these in a future episode. The Stearns County Sheriff Department stayed on the theory of the lakes a long time, for many months in fact, much to the dismay of Josh's father, Brian Guimond. Brian never really believed that his son simply fell or jumped in the water. How could his brilliant son, this model student, have such a clumsy accident or wanting to end his life? One thing that probably didn't help in making the Stearns County Sheriff Department pursue other leads other than the lakes is the disappearance of other young college men within the same time frame. Chris Jenkins disappeared on Halloween night 2002, a little over a week before Josh, and Michael Knoll disappeared on November 6, 2002. This connection was first made on November 14th, as everyone was still searching for Josh. The police soon stopped their searches though, as winter was setting in and the lakes were starting to freeze. Chris Jenkins' body was found February 27, 2003. Michael Knoll's body was found on March 25, 2003. So, they disappeared within a week from each other, and their bodies found in lakes near where they disappeared within a month of each other. These three vanished within a week and a half time frame and within a 100 miles radius from Minneapolis. Once the bodies were found, most people, including the Stearns County Sheriff Department, believed that Josh might have had the same fate, and that his body would be found within a matter of time. I consider the deaths of Chris Jenkins and Michael Knoll very mysterious as well, by the way. Chris Jenkins' death was initially ruled an accidental drowning, but in 2006, a full 3 years later, that status was changed to homicide. To this day, his murder has not been solved, although his family has their suspicions, but were never able to come up with enough evidence to prosecute. Michael Knoll apparently went out to celebrate his birthday with some friends at a bar. His body was found in a nearby body of water as well, and his death has been ruled a suicide. Although it is entirely possible, but I find it strange that he would bother to enjoy himself at a bar for his birthday with friends, then end it all right after. We don't have a lot of information on Michael Knoll though, so we don't know for sure. That is the police's determination. But these three have a lot of things in common. They were all out with friends, having a few drinks, and walking outside alone at night. They have a similar profile as well. Handsome young men, early 20s, slim built, similar heights, driven, ambitious. Today, investigators don't believe there's any connection between the three, but it's hard to say for sure. The big difference is Josh's body was never found. After the discovery of the bodies of Chris Jenkins and Michael Knoll, it seemed to reinforce the idea that Josh might be in the lake as well. On April 1st, 2003, Brian Guimond met up with the Stearns County Board of Commissioners to put pressure to bring in the Trident Foundation, one of the best experts in navigation or searching bodies of water. Josh's family had to raise the funds, but the team did start their search in the second week of May. St. John's University didn't want these searches during the school semester, so Brian had to wait patiently after classes were done. The Trident Foundation cleared all three bodies of water that surround St. John, that being Stumpf Lake, Gemini Lake, and Lake Sagatagan. They issued a statement that Josh is probably somewhere else and recommend the search for Josh to head in another direction. This was part of Brian Guimond's plan. Brian never believed his son just drowned. He always believed his son was abducted or victim of foul play, so he was hoping to clear the lakes quickly so as to motivate authorities to pursue other leads. Sadly, Brian still received a lot of runaround, being told by John Sander that Josh's body probably sank in quicksand or was eaten by snapping turtles. But Brian didn't take any chances. He contacted the appropriate professionals to debunk these silly theories. The Minnesota Soil and Water Conservation Districts responded with a letter to Brian stating that there are no quicksand soils that would sink or hide a body in that vicinity. This letter was received on November 18, 2004. You can find this letter on the apmreports.org website. And snapping turtles? Gosh, do I even need to explain how ridiculous that is? So, even after the Trident Foundation's letter, which states that there was no body found in the nearby three lakes after a thorough search, there were still some who stubbornly clung on to the theory that Josh had drowned. It took years for some of them to finally let go of it. I wonder why people were stuck on the body in the lake theory for so long. Could it be that Josh's case was compared to Chris Jenkins and Michael Knoll and they expected the same outcome? But there is no evidence of anything. No evidence of an accident, no evidence of foul play, no evidence of a struggle or a suicide. When it comes to the searches on the lake and bringing in hound dogs, St. John University's involvement has been a little flaky. While they seemed helpful at first, a medium to large-scale search was launched for Josh early after he disappeared, but as time went on, the university seemed to be a little more difficult to deal with. They eventually called the sheriff department to have bloodhounds removed from campus, not allowing them to investigate inside any buildings. They also refused any more searches on the lake until the school year ended in May. Trying to give the school the benefit of the doubt here, I imagine that these searches were perhaps distracting and a little intrusive for the staff and students on campus. Establishments like this don't normally like to have police or all this commotion around them. But at the same time, one of their students has disappeared, and the fact that they keep hush about it and have been disagreeable or unhelpful at times didn't make them look good in the matter. There will be an entire episode on this campus, believe me. But for now, Josh's scent seems to stop at that bridge. If he didn't fall in the water, then maybe...